Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of Superannuated Starman. I'm your host, Sean Ryan, and as always, I'm joined by Chris Duerksen.
As always.
And Cory Braucks.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so we are going to be playing Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo. This game has a very storied history that I'm going to be covering in a second, and we went and played through this game as well, and we have our experiences that we're going to share. But first, let's take a very quick break so I can insert some music from this game, and then when we come back, I'm going to tell you all about the history of Jurassic Park. Based on the 1990 novel and the 1993 film, the SNES port was released in October of 1993 in North America, December in Europe, and the following year in June of 1994 in Japan. It was developed and published by Ocean Software in North America and PAL regions, and it was published by Jaleco in Japan. Originally slotted for an August 1993 release, the game was delayed after a poor showing at the Chicago Consumer Electronics Show, or CES. The demo that was shown on the showroom floor featured outdated and rough graphics, surprising the Ocean executives back in the UK, as the demo had been developed at the Ocean offices in California. Due to time constraints, the developers were unable to improve the demo's graphics. However, with the delay, they were able to drastically improve for the final release. With the information available, I'm unsure how accurate this next part is going to be because it somewhat conflicts with what I just said. Allegedly, Ocean had more developers working on this project than any other that had come before, leading to some creative differences, and in a quote from Gary Bracey, Ocean's head of software development, he said, quote, "With such a great amount of artistic input, this was actually turned to an advantage." I'm not positive if the demo that was produced in California was made by the same people that developed the main game, or perhaps the poor graphics that I previously mentioned were due to so many instances of that quote-unquote creative differences. I simply do not know. But one of the old adages, too many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah, and I also heard the same thing about like them having the biggest staff for this because they were in such a time crunch that they really cranked up the staff on this game compared to their previous games because they just needed to get it done as quick as possible.
It was a huge time crunch, and I'm going to actually cover some of that in a second.
So, speaking of history, do you have any information on the other Jurassic Park games of this time frame? Or
no,
this isn't like an Aladdin situation, isn't it?
Is compared to the Sega one, yeah.
Because Ocean, who developed this game, was actually the ones that were responsible for releasing the NES and the Game Boy ports as well.
Okay.
And those games came out in pretty comparable times. I actually wrote down their release dates in case it came up, which oddly enough it did. So the NES game released in June of 93, the Game Boy August, and the SNES version came out in October.
But like you said, the Super Nintendo was supposed to come out in August too.
Well, like I played Jurassic Park as a child, and I played on the Sega Genesis, and it was nothing like this at all.
Well, and that was actually one thing that I heard when I was looking up the history about it too. It was actually supposed to be a blessing in disguise that the Super Nintendo version got delayed because the Sega one was such a great game.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we're gonna play Jurassic Park, and you're like, we're gonna play the SNES version. I'm like, okay, there's probably like some graphical differences. Completely different game.
Yeah, I was not aware. Like, I knew there's differences between the Nintendo version and the SNES version. And I was thinking, like, and Sean said that he had experience with the NES. I was like, oh, he can compare notes between the two. But yeah, I had no idea that the Sega was completely.
Well, we can get into the details when we get to childhood memories, but man.
For sure. And one quick note, you talking about if it was an Aladdin kind of situation, to make a reference back to that Aladdin episode, it was Virgin that went ahead and won the rights to the Aladdin game that we saw. But it was previously outsourced to a company called Blue Sky. And this is the game, the Sega game, that's the game that they were working on when they were approached to do Aladdin.
Okay, because they did a great job in comparison to this one.
I watched a little bit of footage from it, and it is just so different from the Game Boy NES, just the Nintendo showings.
Now's a good time to ask. Wasn't the Sega one like a side scroller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could play a dinosaur and eat people.
So I'm sure we'll get to this later, but spoiler alert, this game was a top-down / first-person shooter.
Which is so weird. It caught me completely by surprise.
More on that later.
Cory, I cannot wait to hear your history, especially about the Sega game, and I want to know if you knew about the other ports.
Yeah, my history's going to be 20 minutes of childhood fondness for this title, and it's not going to be a thing at all.
Well, moving back to the history, I did some digging into the development of the film, and I'm really glad that I did because the development of the game was tied directly to the film. I'm not going to go super in depth here, but I'm going to just kind of give a brief backstory to it. So Universal Studios acquired the rights to Jurassic Park in May of 1990, which is a little odd because the book, the novel that I mentioned, didn't even come out until November 20th of 1990.
You guys read
so they had,
book, by the way?
I have read the book.
It's a good book. A lot more death in that.
Oh, a lot more. So Universal has the rights to the film, and the filming didn't even start until August 24th of 1992. So for those of you out there that can't be bothered to do the math, that's 2 years and 3 months after they secured the rights. This time frame, however, does include 25 months of pre-production. But some actors, such as Sam Neill, who filled the role of Dr. Alan Grant, weren't even cast until 3 weeks prior to filming.
Whoa.
So if you break out the old calculator again, if filming started on August 24th of 1992 and the game released on October 1st of 1993, that's 1 year, 1 month, and 1 week from the time that the actors got in front of a camera to the game releasing on store shelves.
Sam Neill did such a good job.
He did, but that's even more insane because, as I said, they originally wanted an August release of the game, but had delayed it because of the poor showing at CES. So how did they manage to do all this with such a short window? Well, Ocean had access to stills and storyboards from the film. So they had a concept of what Spielberg expected to achieve when the film was complete. But as I mentioned, characters such as Dr. Grant weren't even cast until just weeks prior to filming, and the game uses digitized photos of some of those film's characters.
Is that why you never see Grant's face?
Probably.
You only see him from the back.
Yeah, you only see him from the back or this top-down kind of view that obscures a lot of his image. Going back to this, Ocean claims that the game was the first to utilize high-resolution backdrops, and in another quote from Gary Bracey, Steven Spielberg said he wanted a groundbreaking game. We feel this has been achieved due to the development of the 3D technology in the interior sections. Essentially, we're replicating the effects of the Super FX chip in the standard NES hardware. Everyone seems to be pretty impressed. I don't know who everyone is, but I've got a lot to say on this later on.
Cory.
Unique to this version of the game, the Super Nintendo featured the first-person 3D style graphics. When the player enters buildings, they go into a 3D first-person mode. And while they may not have been using the FX chip, The first-person segments utilized as Super Nintendo's Mode 7 and the game's first-person interior sections were created using what's called texture mapping, a fairly complex technique for the hardware to handle. For those of you that don't know what texture mapping is, when they designed a 3D model, they would have to unwrap it. And that is, they would essentially unfold this model made up of a number of triangles until it was a flat shape. And then they would take that image that they had created and color in how they wanted the object to appear, taking into consideration the perspective that the model would have in 3 dimensions and not necessarily what was accurate to the image that they were drawing on. And I couldn't really find a place to fit in this tidbit of information, so I decided to throw it in right here. Jurassic Park is one of the few games on the Super Nintendo that use the SNES mouse as an optional peripheral. Obviously, it was not required. But a quick question from you guys. Did either of you ever actually own the mouse?
Oh,
or
yeah.
any games that used it?
I still have it.
You still have it?
Yeah.
I
And
have
even the little plastic mouse
see.
pad.
I have the
Pictures of
mouse pad.
this.
I've lost the mouse.
I believe my mouse is just as yellow as the SNES itself.
That's fair. It's all the same plastic. So some of the dinosaurs did not appear in the film, but were added into the game for variety, with all the dinosaurs' behavior patterned off of those that were in the film. There was even a scene early in development of a Tyrannosaurus Rex eating Grant that included a bone-crushing sound effect. Nintendo being Nintendo and wanting to protect their family-friendly image, they requested that the bone-crushing effect be removed as it was considered too realistic. And remember, in this time frame, Mortal Kombat had released earlier this same year in September, and they were the ones that changed the color of the blood to sweat. And they even altered some of the fatalities into less violent finishing moves. It wasn't until September of the following year that Mortal Kombat 2 was released that included blood. And there's a whole lot to go into about console wars and everything about that. In fact, there's an excellent book called Console Wars. So I'm about to wrap this up. One interesting bit of note before I do close this out. In the United States, Ocean promoted the game with a contest called the Great Dino Egg Hunt, in which people would search for the game for 8 letters placed on the ground around the park. The letters then had to be decoded to reveal a secret message, Dr. Horner. The answer was a reference to paleontologist Dr. Jack Horner, who was a consultant on the film. Mere days after the game's release, the winner of the contest correctly guessed the answer after only playing the game for 10 hours. And the winner was rewarded with a $5,000 check.
Man, he probably Googled it.
Shut up, Chris.
That's all for the history segment. When we come back, Chris is going to tell us about his memories of Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo.
So I actually didn't have any childhood memories of this game. I never played it as a game. Never anything.
You never even saw it as a kid?
No, I don't remember anybody having it. I never rented it. I never
Did you play the NES version or the Game Boy versions at all?
Nope. And yeah, when this movie came out, it scared the crap out of me. So I probably even avoided anything that had to do with this the movie when I was a kid, when this game came out.
Did you watch it in theaters, or was it something
Yeah.
that you saw later on VHS?
In theater. We went and saw it like opening week. And
Yeah, I did too. That was third grade.
yeah, it was during the summer, and I remember being super excited to go see the movie because I thought it was gonna be awesome, and it terrified me, and like legit terrified me. And yeah, it took me years and years before I ever saw any other Jurassic World movies, Jurassic Park, Jurassic franchise movies. But the reason I picked this game, Corey, where's Corey at? He's quiet.
I'm just seething. How are you?
The reason I picked this game is because it was up to me to pick a quick game on the fly.
You could have.
And
There's a list, ladies and gentlemen. There's
I
a
know.
list of like 47 billion
Exactly.
games.
So I pulled up the list. I didn't realize that the list specified between Sega and the SNES version, and I needed a game that I was like, oh, like all the other games. I was trying to find a quick game because I've got a bathroom renovation going on. My son's birthday this month. I've been super busy, and I was like, okay, what's a quick, easy game that I could play that and possibly my son would enjoy checking out? And I was like, oh, Jurassic Park. Okay, I've never played that. Let's do that. So that's why you guys got stuck with this.
There's so many other great games on this list, man. As
And
even
I
from
figured we'd get to
1993,
them.
we got Battletoads and Battle Maniacs, which
We
is
could have
so
played
much fun.
Battletoads.
We
You have
still
the-
can.
Oh,
You have
I'm
the
not
Super
talking to
Turrican
Chris anymore.
games.
It's only April.
You have games like RoboCop versus Terminator, which isn't that great. But do you guys remember the box for that?
No.
No, honestly.
It is so unique. It is kind of textured and plastic instead of a cardboard box. Google it really quick. And I'll go ahead and I'll talk about my childhood memories, and then we'll finish up with you, Corey. So I didn't even own a Super Nintendo at this time because this is 1993 when it came out, and I've said
Same
in
here, by the way.
many other podcasts that it wasn't until 1994, Christmas of 1994, that I finally got mine. And I had been playing the NES port up to this point, and I had a blast with it. I really enjoyed it, even though it was incredibly difficult. But playing the Super Nintendo port and having previously played the NES port, there is a ton of similarities to it that I didn't know this at the time, but they were done by the exact same developers. So that's where so much of this kind of draws from. The Super Nintendo is a better version than the NES. The NES is a better version than the Game Boy, which of course makes sense. But it was just so hard. And especially at that age, like I said, I was in third grade. So this was a very, very difficult game for me. I never beat the NES version. I did get a hold of a buddy's Game Genie, and I was able to give myself unlimited ammunition, but I think the invincibility code didn't work. And so I just struggled as much as I could through that game. Even with cheating, I could not beat it. Maybe as an adult, I could probably go back through it, but that is definitely not the case. I don't even remember the Super Nintendo version at all, despite having owned and being a subscriber to Nintendo Power.
I'm with you there. Like I really don't even remember marketing or anything for Super Nintendo. I remember seeing the NES version being advertised in comic books and stuff like that, but I don't remember seeing, the Super Nintendo one even advertised.
Neither do I. And I also remember seeing stuff for the Nintendo and Game Boy ports, like you said, in comics in the back of gaming magazines and stuff like that. But Corey, why don't you tell us about your memories? I know that you had said previously that
Okay,
you had a
so
Sega household.
my memories were of playing the 1993 hit classic Jurassic Park for the Sega Genesis, in which you were Dr. Grant in a side-scrolling adventure, and you crawl through the jungle and you shoot dinosaurs with little tranquilizer darts and with smoke grenades and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. And it's not this title, and it's super disappointing.
Yeah, I was definitely disappointment would
Oh, and then in the Rampage edition, I think in the original too, but in the Rampage edition for sure, which is like the remaster, you get to play as a Velociraptor and you get to eat guards. So that's another thing.
What do you mean the remaster? Was that also released on the Sega Genesis, or did
Yeah,
that come
so
later?
there's the Rampage edition, which I think is just like, I don't know, it's kind of like how Street Fighter has 47 different versions, but it came out like a
Yeah,
year
yeah.
later, and I don't know if it's like a sequel or if it's like what, but it's basically just the same game, but it just looks a lot nicer. It's like the same controls and everything. It looks way nicer. I think it's like a complete graphical overhaul. I'll have to actually look into if it's a remake or not. But yeah, like it's a lot of fun. And there's like cool dinosaurs involved, and it's really gorgeous. And you're like in a dense jungle, and you're going beep 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 beep, and there's a lot of platforming, and it's nothing like this at all. So
Yeah, we were talking a little bit off air, and I had watched some videos about the Sega Genesis version, and in stills, it does not look very good, but in motion, the game actually looks great. And I would say it looks much better than the Super Nintendo version.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out. Because I mean, can we go ahead and start giving our thoughts on playing this?
do we need
Since-
a music break so we can go into
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take that music break, and when we come back, Chris, why don't you start us off? So until then, folks, enjoy this music from Jurassic Park from the Super Nintendo. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to be discussing Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo, played in 2023. And the first thing I want to talk about is a reference to a quote that I said in the history section, where the head of software development, Gary Bracey, had said that the graphics looked like they were utilizing the Super FX chip. And I've got to give a strong disagree. While I think the game looks pretty good, a detailed environment and the 3D outdoor environments are impressive. I don't think that it looks as good as they made it out to be, which is probably a lot of marketing speak. The indoor sections, especially, just chug. And given the fact that the dinosaurs can move very, very quickly, traversing left and right like you have to do with a very limited field of view, you're simply too slow to react. You have to know where the dinosaurs are, open up the door, and just kind of traverse like a tank and shoot them before they even get into your area of effect.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. I was gonna say, like, one tip on that is, as soon as you go in the door, just go super, or even before you go in the door, kill anything you see in sight, and just move forward an inch at a time so you don't aggro them.
yeah, that's the term I
you
was
can't
trying to
you
find.
can't move forward an inch at a time though, because like raptors attack from the sides, and like I opened doors and I was getting attacked by things like even when the doors were not fully opening. Like it's janky.
The
It's
ones that
offensive.
spit,
Yeah,
they are like
the Dilophosaurus or whatever they are.
something. And I'm gonna butcher some dinosaur names coming up, but yeah, the ones that spit at you, as soon as you get to the door and you open it, there's already the effect or image, or can't even think of the term I'm trying to use, but you can see that they're already spitting at you as you are showing up. So that radius, that aggro radius that Chris was talking about, you activate it by just walking up to the door.
Yeah, well, and the other problem is that if you come to the door, like, so this thing has more or less 8-way directionality. You can move diagonally, but part of the problem is that like if you approach a door from an angle, like a 45-degree angle, then suddenly like the door's not opening and you're just running alongside this door that refuses to open, but projectiles are still going through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the game kind of registers that it's open, even though it's not.
Yeah, it's and then oh, okay. I'm trying not to hijack like anything, but
No, no
man.
problem.
Oh
Keep
no,
going.
please do, because
It's going to be
I think
this kind of
the
group
whole
thing.
time.
Well,
Yeah.
just the especially the ground or the interior levels is just so terrible. Like it plays like a knockoff version of Doom, and the frame rate is garbage. Probably similar to the frame rate of Doom on the Nintendo. I don't know. You were the only one that had to play through that garbage.
I
But
did, and it was so bad. And
but
that did use
it's
the Super FX chip.
yeah, but it's just like this is just so awful. And like so there are weapons in the game that are non-lethal. Like you have a like a cattle prod, and you have like trank darts and stuff and smoke grenades. I don't know if you're actually killing the dinosaurs when you're using those weapons, because like suddenly
No, because
dinosaurs
they
that you thought you killed are just like up and about.
back up.
And
Yeah, yeah. You
but
knock
like
them out, and their bodies are on the ground.
yeah, but the problem is, yeah, like you said, the bodies are not there on the ground. If you leave the zone and come back through, like the corpses are gone. But then I guess like the trank wears off eventually, because I
Right.
get stuck on things, and it's like you can't go that way. I'm like, what's this invisible wall that wasn't here 5 seconds ago? And it's a dinosaur that's like asleep on the ground that I like made vanish because I stepped off screen,
That
and then
might have been
suddenly like
that
I'm back and they wake up and they bite me in the face, and it's terrible.
that might have been whatever your system you were playing it on, because I did not have that issue. Because my sleeping dinosaurs were a sleeping dinosaur the whole time, and
Like
they're
even if you
even
walked off screen.
yeah, and even
Okay.
when I came back, and sometimes, and even a couple times, I swear, and I could be wrong, I could be mistaken on this, but I swear there are even a couple times, because I think there's a time limit of how long they're knocked out for, because there's times where they were on the ground, and then when I spin around and look at them again, they're back up and attacking me. So
There is a time limit on it.
yeah. So,
And
and I didn't know if you just stare at it the whole time, are they just going to stay asleep the whole time, or are they going to stand up right in front of you? I never put that much time in to figure it out, but they were on the ground for me, and then they would get back up.
So one of the other things I would like to note, and this is actually a difference between the two games. So you have like your little electric taser cattle prod type of thing that you have in this game. When you hold down the button in the Super Nintendo version, you're basically just letting out this weak like arc of lightning that you need a whole bar of the power source to kill a dinosaur with. In the Sega Genesis version, when you hold the button down, it actually makes the arc go forward further so that
Oh,
you can
really?
reach across the screen and hit things from a distance.
That's kind of cool.
So yeah, like, and obviously it's a side scrolling, it's a way better game. But
Now, did it do the same thing where, like in this one, like you basically had a limit of how much you could shock?
it had ammunition. So you basically had like charges, but one charge could go as long as you wanted it to go distance wise if you just held the button down.
I didn't really describe this game very well, and we kind of talked about it a little bit a second ago, where we mentioned that there was a top-down perspective and a first-person view. So the game starts off with you in a top-down bird's eye view perspective, where you're looking down at Dr. Alan Grant, and the game starts off with this digitized voice. It says something like,
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
and then you have to enter the park itself using that cattle prod to open a gate, basically electrifying it enough so that it will turn a knob, allowing you to get past it.
Yeah, by the way, if you go south instead of north, you're immediately just devoured by dinosaurs.
Yeah. My playthrough started exactly like that. I was like, oh, there's a gate here. Probably shouldn't open this yet. I'm going to go south instead.
I went straight into the park. I didn't even ever go south. I might go ahead and check
Yeah,
that
like
out again.
I was like, oh, there's a gate here, like electrified fence that looks dangerous, and I was like, oh well, I'll go
I
south
must be
first and
safe
check
in
things
here.
out. And then I'm like, oh, I'm in the raptor pen and I'm getting just murdered. Like, oh, this is fun. Like all I
No.
have is this crappy taser.
Yeah. And then the part is, I'm taking you didn't get too far into the game. The map is massive. Like Link to the
Well, and
Past, massive.
is there any way to even like look at the map? Like, because there's no way to really.
Nope.
Yeah, because start just pauses and select cycles through your equipment.
Yep.
So
No,
there's really no way to like look at anything.
I had to. I looked up a map online, and it is like like when I saw the giant map, it totally reminded me of Link to the Past, where it takes a chunk of time. Like if you were trying to walk from the north side of the map to the south side of the map, you'd spend at least like probably 20 minutes just traversing the map to get from one top to the bottom.
So another fun thing is that, okay, so you have smoke grenades, you have like a bolo, and you have like 2 weapon slots basically. You have your like offensive kind of murder attack weapon, and then you have your like area effect, like stun kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so you can either have a shotgun or a rocket launcher or tranquilizer darts, and then you have smoke grenades and like a bolo. And then you have like your default weapon when you don't have any ammo, which is this like cattle prod gun. But when you're on the like top down like overworld map, you're running around and there's like ammo and stuff on the ground, and you actually have to like stand on top of items and hit a button to pick stuff up.
To stop and pick it up, yeah.
Yeah, like it's the stupidest thing. Like every other game I've ever played, it's like, oh, you just run over it and it picks it up for you. Nope, you have to just stop and be like, oh, I'm gonna switch out to this thing. It's like the most arbitrary, stupid thing on the planet, and I hate it.
And
Which
because
gets
of
you. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say because of that, because of the whole pickup ammo thing, that led me and keep in mind this is a 1993 video game. Back then, video games were full of secrets and discoverables. So because of that mechanic being in there like that, I figured, oh, this must be in here for a reason.
Were you just spamming the dirt?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
spamming the dirt and spamming flowers, and I'm like, wait, does this flower look a little bit different? Like, I was spamming everywhere, and I didn't find anything.
Well, first because of the graphics, like I didn't realize he was like bending over really. I thought he was like kind of reaching. So I was like, oh, this must be the way to like activate doors. Like I'm walking up to
I
gates
thought
and
this.
hitting
Yep,
a button,
I was
and
doing
I'm
the
like,
same
oh,
thing.
I'm just getting electrified and dying. Like this is fun.
And then the thing when you go inside buildings, which is that first person Doom mode, and so I was going along walls looking for secret doors because also like Doom, yeah, Doom is full of secret doors, and this very much reminded me of Doom, um, or Doom wannabe. So yeah, I was walking around spamming that pickup button, trying to open doors or look behind posters because there's lots of posters and lots of warning signs and lots of control panel looking things, and
And it's all just art.
nothing.
It's all
Yep.
just flair.
Yep, and so I was actually underwhelmed by that aspect of it. I don't know, like like you said, it was just stupid. Like, why they make you well, and also when you are inside, you don't have to stop and pick things up. You just automatically pick it
Yeah,
up.
you just walk over him and then you pick
So-
him up. And that's the other thing that's like, so I didn't realize you could even get stuff on the world map because like some of the
I was
items
the same way. I was just
yeah,
walking over them, and I just thought I'm like, oh, like my first time playing it, like the first half an hour playing it, I was thinking I'm like I was just walking over the thing, and I just thought I was like, oh, this just must be rubble or trash laying around on the
because like
ground.
because you look at the smoke grenades and they're just like 3 like
It looks like a broken
silver
tube.
cylinders. Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like a busted tube. And I'm like, oh, that must be one of them DNA banks that like
Yeah,
in the
or
film, you know,
my
like
thought
Dennis
was like I'm
Nedry
like,
gets
oh,
killed.
it's like a chimney that fell off or a vent from something
Well, I
underground or
just
something.
like it's
That's
the
what I thought.
scene. It's the scene where he drops the shaving cream and all of, like the DNA things.
Yes.
Like I was just
The
like, oh, this must
Barbasol.
be yeah, like this must be where Dennis Nedry bought it, and this is the Barbasol can. And then come to find out it's the smoke grenade, and you actually have to hit a button to pick it up. I'm like, this is stupid.
But spoiler alert, don't pick up the smoke grenades. They're
Yeah, they're
absolute
garbage.
garbage.
Well, one of the
Jeez.
pains with having to pick up items like that, like you said earlier, you have to stop, press a button, and during that time, dinosaurs will just
Vulnerable.
come at you. They do not screw around. They will come at you they will just spawn from the kind of jungle-like areas and just beeline right to you. And the velociraptors will take a considerable chunk of your health
I
if you do
eat
not
a
get them
third.
first.
And also, one thing that's tricky about this game is that I think all the spawn points and everything in this game is deliberate. Like,
Well, yeah.
like the spawn points, and there was one item I can't remember. I think it was like a health pack, like in that area when you go south and you're, so everybody can get a picture of this. When you're outside in the outdoors, It's a top-down image, and the world is basically kind of like a giant hedge maze. Like, would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, there's just a bunch
Yeah.
of like stands of trees and river and stuff that's just constantly impeding your like path.
Right, but even like when you're going through the jungle, you're following the path. It's basically a maze, and then when you get to the cliffs, it's a maze. I mean, and it's not necessarily a maze, but it is a very slim path where you're stuck, and you can't just go through the trees. Like
Yeah.
it is a yeah.
So there's
it's
another thing that drives me nuts. Like there's portions where the trees will end and then there'll be like a strip of land and then the river starts. You cannot just walk north along that strip of land
where
even
it
though
looks
it's
like you should be
wider
able,
than
like,
your character. And it's just an invisible wall and it's like you guys couldn't just make the textures go like that much further.
an inch over. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, talking about so this above this out what should we call it?
The overworld.
The overworld. When you're in the overworld looking down, and there's raptors that spawn in the trees and stuff. Like when you're walking by the trees, a raptor will just spawn by. And we're talking about picking up items, and when you're stopping with your ass up in the air and you're picking stuff up, things can run up on you. I think they deliberately. There are a couple spots where they deliberately put things right on the edge of the forest, and when you go up to grab them, a raptor jumps out right there.
Oh yeah, like
yeah, I
there's
think there was-
items where it's
yeah.
just bait.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I'm saying, is that even in the overworld, as well as the indoor sections, you have to be like this precognitive bastard and know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And one thing that drove me crazy in the cliff area is those stupid boulders that until I started like, well, after I got killed by the
You
first
mean the
one,
boulders that one shot you if you get
the
clipped
one
by
shot
'em?
you,
Yeah.
and they blend right in, and they don't like rumble, and they fall for no reason. First off, they don't like they're like there's no indicator that they're about to fall. They basically you trigger them and they fall.
The thing that drives me most insane about them is that if you get up top and you walk behind the boulder, you
can't
can't
push 'em.
preemptively push it down
Yeah.
to then clear your way if you're going to go beneath it. So you can get up top and like clear this like, mesa or whatever that you're standing on. And then you go down to like clear below and you forget that there's a boulder there and it'll just start rolling and murder you. And it's like, oh, okay, this is fun. This is
And-
totally.
And everybody's like anybody listening that's thinking, oh, just get out of the way of it. It drops from like a foot above your head. So
And
when
you're
it drops,
so slow too.
you are so slow. Like the only way to avoid them is like you can try to like tap on your stick to go just a little bit at a time, or tap on your D-pad and then back off really quick, or you just don't stop moving at all. And
like
and the
my
boulder
method
just
was
barely
to
misses
just
you.
jump as I saw the
Yes.
boulder. Was like basically to just jump and get those iframes of me traveling through the air to like get out of the way.
Yeah, there
And you
is.
only get 5 lives and 2 continues. That's
But-
it.
But to be fair, and one thing I figured out, you get an infinite amount of continues. And when you continue, it doesn't restart the game. You don't lose points. You don't lose progress. You don't lose anything. It doesn't even, like, nothing respawn. Like, the creatures don't respawn. And if anybody's asking about, like, health packs and all that stuff respawns every time you refresh the area that you're in.
Well,
So, like,
counter like argument to that though is that dinosaurs, I mean, which is I guess a little realistic, they literally rip your face off in 2 shots. So
yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
just so harrowing.
But realistically, I mean, this game, yeah, you die a lot, and
A lot.
you might, and you can use a lot of continues, but it's not like other games where you only have 3 continues, or you basically have infinite health or
I
infinite
don't know why
lives.
you'd want to just subject yourself to like just this death simulator
Exactly.
for like an hour and a half though.
Yeah.
Sean, do
I
you want to
just-
talk about our friend, like the orange banners?
Well,
Yes.
okay. Well, hang on. Before we move on to continues, though, I do want to make a note that just seemed the fact that you have an unlimited amount of continues, which basically means you have an unlimited amount of healths, and the fact that nothing resets, your number of continues don't affect the game in any way, just seems like laziness to me. Like when they were designing that, when they're coming up with that, they're like, oh, well, like, yeah, every game gives you a number of lives and a number of continues. So it's like they felt obligated to put the concept of lives and continues in the game, but then they didn't make it mean anything, which to me is just lazy. Or
Well, I don't know if it's lazy so much as we made something that we ourselves cannot.
merciful.
Deal with.
I don't know. It's just,
And it's just like no one's gonna beat this game if we don't give them 1,000,000,000% equipment to get through it.
now before we do move on to the next thing, though, one thing while we're talking about lives and continues, this game does have checkpoints. So when you do die, you will spawn back at the last checkpoint that you reached or the last building that you were in. So that's how that whole death system works.
Oh, also you can jump into rivers willingly and then just immediately drown.
Yes. All right, so on to the cue cards.
And before the first one that you experience, as you're walking into the park, you immediately come in contact with a group of dinosaurs. And you have your cattle prod, which has a very small kind of, I don't know, range. That's the word I'm looking for.
It's ranged like twice the number of frames that you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a melee attack. It's rough.
Yeah.
It is not far. But of course, the first thing you're going to do is shoot these dinosaurs. And the second that you do, this huge semi-transparent orange window pops up with a message from Tim Murphy that says, Mr. Grant, do not shoot the, I'm about to butcher this,
Pachycephalosaurus.
Gallimimus?
Yeah, the
Gallimimus.
Glyptosauruses, they'll
Gallimimus.
charge at you.
Yeah, the
Yeah, it says,
Gallimimus.
yeah, they may stampede. Great. I could have used that information a moment earlier.
Now, if it makes you feel any better, they stampede no matter what. They stampede based on range rather than you actually attacking them.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. And
Oh.
you still can blow them up anyways, which is you want to do anyways because they're going to stampede no matter what. And should we mention, by the way, just how ridiculous it is in this game? A bolus, which anybody who does not know what a bolus is, Cory, you want to give your hilarious explanation what a bolus does?
Do I have a hilarious explanation? It's basically
You make
just a
everything
couple
funny.
of rocks with like tied together, and it's like one of them old school like Samson taking down, whatever, Goliath or David and Goliath, like
That's a slingshot.
like that sort of thing, like it's a stupid stick rock that you whip at people.
A bolus is basically two weights with a chain in between.
Yeah,
that basically
that's what I
hog
just
tie
said,
somebody.
Isn't that what I
Yes.
just said?
And that is way more funny than what I would have said. But anyways, so in this game, the boluses, which is what we just described, and the rocket launchers and the shotguns cause the dinosaurs to explode. All the dinosaurs, and I'm guessing that's because of the family-friendly thing. They didn't want blood in the game. So when you use the cattle prod, it makes dinosaurs just disappear.
They fall over. By the way, I could not cattle prod one of them charging dudes. I don't know if that's an option.
Yeah, no. The cattle prod only works on smaller dinos, like
stupid.
The compies.
The Glyptosauruses.
For the bigger size dinos, you need bigger stuff, but it blows them up. It literally, like Ninja Turtle style explosion, blows them up, and I just thought that was hilarious.
So Sean, continue with your rant about orange screens, please.
And like what I was saying though, the with the charging packies is that you cannot stun them. You have to use a bolus or an ammunition-based weapon to blow them up while they are stampeding.
Well, that screen stays on there for so long.
And you said it's semi-transparent. It's barely semi-transparent.
Yeah,
Like,
you can barely tell what's going on behind it. You can still move. It doesn't pause the game for you. No, that'd be too easy. Instead, the dinosaurs are still stampeding, causing damage as you just try to get away from them. Even worse, that's not the only time. Every time that you pick something up that's important, like an ID card or an egg, that damn screen pops back up and you are just stuck there for like 20 seconds where you just have to wait it out.
And did you? I mean, did you get? I assume you made it to the part fairly in the beginning zone where you're making your way to the Raptors, and they're like, "Oh, watch out for the escaped Raptors. They'll, you know."
Oh, eat your face off,
no,
Dr.
no. I
Grant.
think well, first off, I think that the card says they only attack you if you attack them, which is
I don't
baloney.
think it says that.
Yeah. No. There's one card where the guy's like, "Oh, you know, the Raptors are only get aggressive if you attack them." But meanwhile, like in order to get to this little checkpoint that's in the middle of the screen, there's these two tiny little, I think they're Raptors because they're talking about the cards being the Raptors. But the card pops up when you get into the area saying, "Hey, watch out for the Raptors," and they make a beeline for you. And these things are the first dinosaurs I came across that literally will chase you around the entire time they're on your screen
from a 45-degree angle, and then while you're trying to figure out how to aim, they eat your face.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, okay.
And you have that card pop. You have that card popping up the entire time.
And that card will keep coming back even though you've seen it before, too. So
and
it's like every time you come through the zone.
Yeah, and there's no button to rush that card off the screen either.
Yeah, it's not like a normal thing or like a tutorial where it's like, oh, this will pause the game really quick and you press A or whatever to get it off your screen and then you continue on. Like, no, it's this like semi-transparent, and we use the term transparent loosely.
75%
like screen.
transparent.
Yeah, it's basically like an orange key card, and it's got like slats through it so you can see like you're looking through a fence basically. It's dumpster.
Now, one cool thing about those cards is that instead of like an idle animation, when you're idle too long, one of those cards pop up and gives you cool little facts about.
Oh yeah, the Dino DNA guy will come up and go, "Hey, did you know there's a dinosaur that makes laser beams come out of its butt?"
Yeah, Mr. DNA pops up with interesting facts when you idle too long or you sit on the pause screen.
Yeah,
which I
thought was a great inclusion to the game. As a kid, I'd probably be indifferent to it, but as an adult, I was like, okay, that's pretty great. I do enjoy this.
Yeah.
But playing this game, actually playing it, the overworld isn't very confusing. You're just kind of funneled around. Like, there's not a lot you can really mess up there. But going inside the buildings,
can I argue that the entire time for the last 2 weeks we're playing this, I felt lost the entire time I was in the overworld. Well, I mean, I got to know like 3 sections, and that was about it. And I do feel like had I had this as a kid, this would have been one of those games that you play for months on end, and you get to kind of know the area and know your surroundings and know the map. But as somebody who's just trying to bang it out and trying to like play it as quickly as I could for a podcast, I felt lost the entire time, and I did not pull up a map. Like,
this game definitely needs an in-game map for both inside and outside. That would have been really helpful.
Yeah, but they would have made it so that way every time you pull the map up, you're still getting attacked by dinos.
Oh yeah, it doesn't pause it. It'll just get slaughtered.
Yeah, that's probably what they would have done. But the inside buildings, okay, there are elevators, so there are multiple floors to this, but everything looks the same.
The exact same, and there's no arrows. There are exit signs.
There are exit signs
which don't help you because you don't know where you're exiting to either.
Exactly.
Exit, and it's like, how did I get here?
And you don't know where the exit signs are until you're at the exit, and at that point you're like, I don't need that sign.
Well,
like I need an exit. I need an exit arrow
just to try to figure out where it's dumped me out in the overworld. Really?
Yeah. I need that exit sign 3 rooms before I find the exit, saying, "Hey, the exit is this way. Keep going that way."
So one of the things about the back to the orange cards, though, one of the other things that drives me kind of crazy about this is that those orange cards are like other scientists and like park personnel just having a laugh, like talking to you, like it'll pop up and it'll be Jeff Goldblum or it'll be like, you know, John Hammond or whoever, like be like, "Hey, Dr. Grant, make sure that you hit the Swashwazzler, otherwise you'll get electrified by the murder fence." And it's like, "Oh, okay, thanks, Jeff Goldblum. Where are you? Why aren't you out here helping me? Like, I'm just wandering around this murder park, and I have a rocket launcher for some reason." I don't remember Dr. Grant ever having a rocket launcher in the film, but like, there's no help from any of these people, and you're in constant communication with them somehow. And it's
I think
so
this is
stupid.
I think this is a perfect part to talk about the plot of the game because we haven't even touched
Is
on
there
that
a
yet.
plot to the game? Like, I think you just
Yes.
have to turn on like the power grid to like Island New Bar or whatever, right?
So the cards that keep popping up are people talking to you. Those are actually supposed to be like the in-game communication system, because they are monitoring you from a safe room. Supposedly, I think they are monitoring you from like their safe location.
I'm glad the security cameras work, but no one mentioned that there's a damn dinosaur on the other side of the room.
Yeah, and so as you're playing this game, you have a series of objectives to do that you're just kind of knocking out the whole time. One
Which you
is
can't check.
to restore power to the island. Another one is to restore the computer system so that we have control over the gates and the security systems, and that little radar that's on the bottom of your screen, which I'm sure none of us activated.
Nope.
Eventually, you get to turn that thing on so you can actually see where raptors are hiding at.
No.
Yeah.
No. Oh my.
Yeah. That little
Oh.
that
I'm gonna
little
mute because I'm about to swear.
yeah that little thing I found out. Once you turn it on, yeah, it's a legit
Sean's
radar.
just having a conniption.
And the size of the dinosaur is represented by how red it is, basically, like raptors.
So it's aliens, like where it's like
Yes.
10 meters, they're right on top of us.
No. Like it shows you like the exact direction where they are
so
in comparison
the
to you.
thing when Sigourney Weaver was getting murked up in the spaceships.
No, I'm just saying, but the it shows the raptors as bright red dots, and then it shows compies as like tiny little kind of like muted red little brown dots that are just kind of running around everywhere.
Yeah,
so like
by
when
the
you're
way,
walking around,
for the viewers at home, this radar is basically like a target. So it's like 3
Dartboard?
rings with
Yeah.
like the little lines through them. And yeah, I just thought that was just a piece of like stupid scenery.
So you turn on the power up the computers, turn on like the radar system, like whatever the monitoring system or surveillance system, that's what it is, which is what turns on your radar. You are also supposed to go around, you have to collect all these ID badges, which act like door keys, basically.
Why is John Hammond's ID badge on top of the roof?
Sunbathing in the nude. And then you also have to go around.
Okay, go ahead, because
I was going to say, you also have
mentioned...
to find eggs.
Yes, you have to collect all of the dinosaur eggs.
Because the whole point of this is you trying to get off the island, but also you trying to reinstate all the security stuff on the island to stop the dinosaurs from getting out to the rest of the world. So, yeah, powering up everything, finding eggs, and then eventually like clearing a boat, because apparently I did not get this far, but I was looking ahead. There is some sort of cargo boat or something where the raptors took over
to get off the island.
Yeah, which you don't even use because you end up having to call in a helicopter to get you off. So yeah, so like the game has a lot of stuff keeping you busy the whole time. You're not just...
Here's my argument though, is that so you've listed all of these like clear-cut objectives and everything.
That's the thing, they're not clear-cut because nothing is explained to you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I as a player spent 47 years like running around in circles, and the only thing like I knew about the eggs because there's a giant orange card that pops up every time you pick an egg up, and it's like
tells you how many are
16
remaining.
eggs left or whatever. And it's like, thanks, Ian Malcolm, for telling me about that. Like, why don't you get out here and pick up some of these stupid eggs yourself? But like, you don't know what to do with them. You don't know like if you have to like bring them somewhere or...
I know, and the crazy thing, one of the first buildings you go into, there's an incubator room. I'm like, okay, like, am I supposed to put the eggs in here? Like, and I was overthinking it. Like, I wasn't keeping the mentality of a 1993 simple video game. I was thinking, I'm like, do I have some sort of
lame argument though? Because we've played games from 1993 that we've raved about for being so creative and in depth and like. And, this is the same era of, like, Zelda and Mario and, like, Shining Force and all these other titles we've covered where, like, there are charts and graphs and, like,
inventory
ready
systems.
And it just, there's so much more going on in all their titles. And, I mean, like, we just played Aladdin, which is like the same year basically, and it's such a better game.
Yeah. I mean,
and playing this game.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Guys, I tried. I played for hours, and not just an hour or two here. I have a lot of free time, and especially these last couple of weeks, I've only had a few shifts that I had to do at the ER. So I had time. I got nowhere. So I figured I needed to change up my strategy. So I purchased a copy of Volume 54 Nintendo Power, which had maps. So I knew
my
where
God.
I was going. Yeah, it has maps for the southern portion of the island, as well as layouts for the Nublar utility shed, the beach utility shed, and the visitor center. So I knew where I was going, and I
you
was
still couldn't
still
figure.
getting wrecked. And okay, at that point, I was like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I'm cheating. So I got online, I Googled Jurassic Park SNES cheats, and there are several, but I couldn't get any of them to work.
So then I hacked in a Game Shark.
So I was like, what do I have to do? I tried again after that for another round of many hours, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm not having fun. And I'm going to talk about more about this in our final thoughts, but I just wasn't having fun. So I had enough, and I decided I was just going to watch a Let's Play. And
There you go.
I sat there and I watched from beginning to end of someone speed running. Well, I say Let's Play, but they knew exactly what they're doing. So it was basically a speed run, and they knocked it out in like an hour and 20 minutes.
That's still so long. Like for someone to, like you look at the older like Let's Plays and the speed runs and everything. Like you can watch somebody play like Castlevania in like 20 minutes, or like Metroid or something. For this to take like an hour and a half, where someone is literally going through like a pre-memorized route, like that's insane.
I think I watched the same Let's Play.
There's a lot of backtracking.
Dude, this game has so much backtracking, but also the guy in the Let's Play was talking about, I let me know if it's the same one, because I did the same thing. I'm like, I'm not having fun. I don't have time. I don't have the time to fully invest in this game. So I watched the Let's Play as well. But as I'm watching this guy keeps talking about it. He's like, oh, I normally don't pick these up, but every time I come in by these, I use these as a landmark or something. I'm like, how many times did you play this? Like the guy who made this video is very clear. Like, he will play this game several times.
You know what else drives me crazy is that in the first person areas, all the equipment that you can pick up, they put it in such stupid places that's like right in front of an elevator. But it's like, I don't want the darts. I want to keep my rocket launcher. So please don't put this right in front of the elevator. So you have to like run over the same spot 3 times to make sure that your ammo gets switched out and the elevator door opens.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are very, very tedious. But I think that we've kind of talked about the entirety of the game.
I have more, but
you do? Okay. All right. Well, I'm kind of tapped out, so I'll let you guys kind of keep going.
I think the viewers get the point. Like, this is just it had such potential because it is a cool concept, right? Like, because you have kind of this overworld where you have like running around on the main floor and doing all this fun stuff, and then you get into these like complex modes. But the way that they did everything with like the bad graphics and everything like looking like background material, like I honestly, some of these spots I just thought it was like, I didn't know it's a door, because there's so many things that look like just a crappy white banner or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, that's just got to be like another stupid like Biohazard logo. It's like, no, that's a door. You can go through that. Like, it's just everything's so janky, and I just feel bad because like I'm sure someone put a lot of time and effort into this, but
No, that's the thing. They didn't. It was a rush job.
well, but they had how many people working on this?
Right,
It might
but
have
I
been
mean-
something they cranked out in like 6 months, but they had like 100 guys working on it, and it's just
No, I don't. I can't remember. I did see the number somewhere. It wasn't 100 people. It was. I think it was like. Sean, do you have any guess?
No, I don't have a number, but they were working on 3 titles basically simultaneously. So a lot of people were working on this concept,
And I think
a
it was
lot
like
of that
18 people.
and a lot of that
which was
art
considered
was
a big team.
shared. Yeah, that's massive at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had input from the studios. Like when you see the introduction, it says like Paramount and Amblin Entertainment or whatever. It's like you had probably like executives, like having input, and it just like
Well, and the fact that Spielberg was
Well,
breathing down there
Spielberg,
next thing.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think
want
this
I
is
want a
seriously like
legendary game.
this is seriously like a too many cooks in the kitchen situation where it's
Yeah.
just like
Well, I'm not surprised that Spielberg really got involved because if you remember the last time that Spielberg had a game that he kind of
yeah,
touched on,
E.T. being
it was E.T.
yeah, being hot garbage. But yeah, it's just it's rough, guys. Don't waste don't look for this. Just put your head in the sand and hide away from it.
Wait, hey, how about we take a music break and then? Oh, and speaking of the music, before we go to our final thoughts, if you guys are ready for final thoughts, I do want to mention the music. None of the music in this game has anything to do with the iconic music in the Jurassic Park
Yeah, there's
movies.
no John Williams score in this piece of crap.
Not even a hint of it. Not even a dun, 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 nothing.
Yeah, you'd think like during the loading screen or something like they.
You know what this music score reminded me of? And every time, especially when I died on the continue screens and eventually there was a couple times I just got frustrated and I was like, I'm lost. I'm just starting over. So the next time I die, I'm not continuing. And then there's like a little scoreboard and you put your initials in. It reminded me of NBA Jam.
Just generic filler ESPN music.
Yeah, like which just except like I don't know, like except maybe with, like, jungle drums. I don't know. It was weird.
So let's take that break, and when we come back, we will discuss our final thoughts. And
can
we're
we use
also
the elevator
announcing
music as the transition to this spot?
the elevator music.
Yeah,
oh,
isn't there like the
okay. There's something there. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll discuss those final thoughts. We're also going to announce our last two winners for the last two remaining Switch codes.
Oh, mazel tov.
Ooh.
Again, these are North American Switch codes for the game Celeste off of the Nintendo Switch eShop.
Which I'm really surprised those are the last two games because Celeste is such a great game.
Well, it's also like kind of an indie title where people just, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But
it is a fantastic game. And if you already own it, you can always pass those on and gift it to someone else. So stick around, enjoy this music, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. So behind the scenes, we pulled up the random number generator and we've got two more codes. We had two more winners and we're going to be announcing them after we do our final thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead and go first. Mine is very, very short. Going in and out of the buildings constantly. Every few minutes, you perform some sort of action, whether it's picking up an ID card or an egg. You have no idea what your clear-cut goals are or how to accomplish them. This is just not a good game. It's an interesting curiosity and does have a lot of impressive things about it. I did slam on the graphics earlier and about how it chugs when you go into the buildings, you get that first person view, but it is unique and it is something to be impressed by, but it's just not very well done. There were other games.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Did it better.
I thought you guys were going to shit all over my thoughts for this, and you took the words right out of my mouth.
No, that's just how it is, man. You had other games. Okay, Super Noah's Ark 3D. That came out in 1994. I don't believe it used the Super FX chip, but it was basically a Wolfenstein 3D clone, but made by Wisdom Tree, I believe. And it's just a very, very simplistic first-person view game where things are done so much better. It's unreal that a game like that is more fun to me than a Jurassic Park title. Yeah. And that should not be the case.
Dude, we had marketing companies like make reskins of Doom that were better than this. Like we're talking about like Chex Quest here, you know?
Chex Quest is awesome.
Yeah, it's great. But the fact that like someone took the time to like redo this and make it into a new like better thing where like you had a multi-million-dollar company, I'm assuming, like Oh, it's rough, man.
Now, one thing I did want to point out that I was going to mention about as far as like Wolfenstein 3D, this game only came out a year after that. So, I mean, it did, and that was one of the facts that tidbits I learned from the little playthrough that I watched. And that made me kind of go, huh, like that is something worth considering. Is the fact that like the 3D, even though it was not great, it was still kind of new at the time and it's still kind of
But like
groundbreaking and
it wasn't
for the
though.
time for the time it
But
was.
like,
I mean,
this is the
final
same year
thoughts.
we had Doom, we had Star Fox, like we had Link to the Past, right? Or is it Link's Awakening? Like they're
Yeah,
just
There were better
but-
games.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
all
yeah, yeah.
there is to say.
No,
There were
I'm saying
much
specifically
better games.
Specifically just the indoor 3D, I mean first person aspect
Okay.
of walking around.
All right, I get
That
what you're
part,
saying.
yeah, is worth, at least a little nodded and a clap for, A for effort.
I disagree, but go ahead.
I do agree with Chris there, and I already kind of mentioned that. I think that they did something unique with the transition from that third person to first person, but it didn't work. It didn't work the way they wanted it to, and so they just kind of came out and said, "Oh, we're doing some groundbreaking stuff here," where you really weren't. Cory, what are your thoughts on the game?
I think that they bit off more than they could chew, and they had some great ideas, and they completely oversold and underdelivered. I think that all of the interior gameplay elements were very like poorly done, and you can say that this is like a year after Wolfenstein, or like this is the same year Doom came out, so it's kind of like a new thing for them to be doing it. But even even though this is a new thing and it's kind of new territory, like the level layout for all of those like interior structures is so terrible, where you had rooms kind of doubling back on each other, and you had like no clear cut direction, and you had no map, you had no like detail to go anywhere. All of the walls look the same, so like you're never sure if you're in the room you were just in 10 seconds ago. Like they didn't put any effort or thought into their decisions, and that's why I cannot say with good conscience that it's because this is a new thing that they made a bad game. It's just that they just made a bad game. They didn't put the effort in to play test this or look at it and go, "Hey Bob, do you think it's really stupid that like as a person who's never played this before, I could walk in here and get lost in this 4-room complex because there's 7 doors that all connect back in on each other? Oh, Terry, you're right. That is a very bad decision. We should probably fix that." That discussion never happened. So like I just think that they just made a bad game. And I think that is a great concept. I really love the idea of having this like overworld system where you kind of transition into these like first person games and everything. And I can forgive frame rate issues because we're talking about the Sega Genesis, but the fact that you made it like 8 directionality
Super
and
Nintendo.
sorry, Super Nintendo, but like the fact that you made it like 8-way directions and then made the computer way better at it than you could ever be, and then like everything is so punishing that you basically have infinite lives because they're like, there's no way you could do this as a normal person in 5 attempts, and then
Oh, I have one thing I want to interject because you made me think of it. There is no save states.
yeah.
There's no password system. You have to do it all in one sitting.
Yeah, so if you're like just a normal kid and you have like 2 hours on a Saturday or whatever, like if you really try to brute your way through this and you get 60% through the game, like you basically have to pause it and like turn off your television and walk away and hope your parents don't rip you a new one for leaving your game on overnight. Like it's just bad. It's a bunch of half ideas, and it just, to me, it reeks of like a serious like marketing meeting where they're like,
Oh,
I really like that, or I like that, and it's like a lot of concepts and nobody like made sure that any of them were any good.
and can we also mention the fact the indoor sections, there is no side strafing, and there are dinosaurs shooting projectiles at
Yeah, so you have to turn.
yeah turn and run and then turn back to fire.
It's like
And also,
you're like a tank.
Yeah, or if they're coming from an angle, you have to like hold down two directions and fire at the same time and hope you snap off a shot before like Raptor Joe eats your face off. Like it's bad design.
And when you're talking about the design that the interior levels getting lost, do you know what these all reminded me of? You remember the screensavers back in like Windows 90, whatever,
it's like the
where
maze where you're like in the brick and you're following like the wall 3 inches from your face and it's constantly turning.
Yeah,
and you're
I
like,
haven't
where
thought
am I?
about that in 30 years.
And you
Neither
go
have I,
nowhere.
but we all know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it reminds me of that screensaver. And the buildings, like you said, there were only like 4 rooms per level or whatever.
But there's
I would
9
get
doors.
lost. Yeah, I would get lost constantly. I was always like, it felt like a much bigger maze than what it really was.
Or I would get on an elevator and then I would like not
have
remember
no
which
idea.
way I went because it's like press A
I
or
have
B
no
or
idea.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then you
No
get to
idea
the
which way I
next
was going.
floor and then you get off and you're like, was I here 5 minutes ago? And then you get lost in the same 5 rooms because everything respawns.
They could have at least like color coded the
Yeah,
floors or
that's what I'm
something.
talking about. Like there was just no thought put into it. They didn't put signs up. They didn't differentiate between any of the textures. I will say that the overworld like looks really nice visually, but the fact that they have like they basically made like a pre-rendered stamp where they could slap down a thing of trees and
Yeah.
it had this like edge of terrain to it like you're in MS Paint or something. And there's so many of these little pathways that look like you can walk through them but you can't. And there's just invisible walls everywhere and there's murder rivers that you can jump into. Like they let you just suicide. And it's like,
or
why
dinosaurs
did you
bump you into it.
Yeah, like why did you let me just willingly throw myself into the water if it's just a game over?
How come I can throw myself into a river but I can't throw myself into a tree?
Yeah, it's just, and then from the tree, this like little like 3x3 square of trees, there's a dinosaur that jumps out and rips your face off.
That's 3 times the size of you.
Yeah, like it's just overall 0 stars. Would not recommend. Leave it in the past. Like if you want to play Jurassic Park from 1993, go play the Genesis version because it's the same premise, but it's a great side scroller. Like that's really all I have to say.
Based on what you said, I'm actually probably going to check that out. So,
Yeah,
Chris, why don't you finish up your final thoughts, and then we'll go on to the winners, and then we will close out this show.
My final thoughts, the just to build on that, the overworld I think does look good, and it surprised me how smooth it ran. And I like the overworld didn't chug at all for me. Super smooth.
No, yeah, the overworld was fine.
Yeah, super smooth. I like the animations, the bright colors. I mean, it sucks because even the overworld, it's still 8 directional things, and when dinosaurs are getting you from an angle on a D-pad, it is very hard to shoot at angles. So basically, my like for compies, my thing was I just hold down the cattle prod and just spin in circles. That way, I could just slap them as I spun around. But the other thing worth mentioning is the sound quality. The music sucked, but apparently, like
it wasn't really.
Yeah, the music sucked, but this apparently I did not verify this. I heard this from one of the playthrough things, and when I was looking up history myself, apparently this was one of the first games that used 3D audio or stereo video in video games, so that way the raptors actually sound like they were coming from the left or right side or whatever. That's worth
I had a headset on.
Yeah, I mean, that's worth mentioning if that's accurate at all. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong,
but that's only good if you have a large stereo system in 1993, or like Cory mentioned, you're wearing headphones to play your Super Nintendo.
In 1993, the TV I was playing my video games out of was the size of a shoebox.
Well, or you had the family TV. You had a CRT that was the size of a sedan, and it weighed 4,000 pounds.
Yeah. Actually, no, I take that back. In 1993, I was playing video games out of like big wood frame one that sat on the floor.
My grandparents had the old
had plants on top of it.
Yeah. Had to warm it up.
But no, my overview, I mean, I appreciate the effort, what they tried to do. And from a 1993 point of view, when this movie came out, it was huge. This movie was absolutely huge. Um,
And I think that further annoys me is that you
right.
look at the film and, using practical effects, they made Jurassic Park, and it's this amazing, like, cinematic masterpiece, and it's such a fun story. And then you get into this game, and it's just such a cheap knockoff.
That
And there
movie
is
holds
such
up
a
so well, and this
yeah.
game does not.
Well, and like the other thing too that kills me is that so you have the overworld and you have the first person, and the visuals on those are so drastically different. It looks to
Yes.
me like they made the overworld game and they had a great idea going, and then someone played Wolfenstein 3D like 2 months before this game was supposed to be released, and they're like, what if we put a bunch of crappy complexes in
Hey,
the
boss,
game?
check this out.
Yeah, and they're like, hey, that's a great idea, Smith, you're promoted. Like,
The second you said that, I know that's what happened.
Yeah.
I have no way of verifying that, but I know it deep
well,
inside
yeah,
my
because
bones.
it's so different. Like, because the overworld is a very much like bright palette, very cartoony, like
Clean,
it's
nice
well, and it's very
round
like
edges.
bubbly, like
Yeah.
like I can't explain it, but like everything is very like rounded
Round, yeah.
and it
Bright
looks like
and
kind
bubbly
of like
and
Mario almost,
cartoony.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get into the complexes, and they're all like really
Doom.
like Doom, like knockoff Doom graphics, like Wolfenstein-esque, like really dumpster game.
Dark room.
Yeah, just
no
dark
windows.
and crappy, and like everything is super. And the fact that these complexes are so incredibly small further speaks to that idea that they were just a horrible rush job.
I think that's all there is to say.
I have more.
But
yes.
I do want to say, but look, hindsight. But anyways, like I was saying, the movie was so great, so groundbreaking, and a lot of the movie had a lot of fans. I can imagine back in 1993, when this game came out, I'm sure because I mean this game it did fairly well financially, didn't it? It was
It sold well.
Yeah, it sold well, and for a long time, it was considered one of the best Super Nintendo games on the system for a while. I think it was ranked one of the best games of 1993.
Was it ranked that
like
by players though, or was it ranked
No,
by like five guys that got paid?
No,
to
no,
sell
no.
this?
I think. I don't want to say because I'm sure it's gonna be wrong. I wish I would have wrote it down, but I swear I saw somewhere like it was ranked like the third best game of 1993 or something like that.
That's offensive.
But
you know how many
exactly.
great titles we've played in 1993 so
I know.
far? Street Fighter came out.
maybe financially.
Jam.
But with the movie coming out, and like this probably created a nice way for fans who love that movie to experience the movie in a different way and feel like they were interacting. Yeah, read the book, but no, I'm just saying, like, I could see how, because I mean there were just so many references to the movie and the all the characters, like they included so many characters from the movie in this game.
Yeah, I mean, like you actually have like the actual like art, like it is.
Yes, exactly.
It is Jeff Goldblum in the picture, right?
Yes, and the fact that and it's all the entire casts are on, like the whole cast, like even the guy that got eaten on the toilet. I can't remember what was that little
Dennis
weasel's
Nedry.
name. Yeah, even you're picking up one of his cards. No.
Oh,
Newman's
the lawyer that
one,
got eaten. Yeah,
yeah, the lawyer that got eaten.
Yeah,
even
he
makes a appearance in this game. Like this game did create a nice interactive experience for deep fans of the movie that if they really love the movie enough to torture themselves playing this game.
I don't know if it created a nice interactive experience though. It created just a horrible money grab, in my opinion.
And they couldn't have been super fans by that time because it only came out in June, and this game released only a couple months later.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true. That's true. I didn't think of it like that way. Yeah, there probably weren't, Jurassic nerds that were, creating fan fiction.
This just screams as a rush job for marketing to me.
And it totally, it totally was a rush job. And thank God it got delayed to October, because apparently if that August release date would have been even way worse than what this would.
Well, and that's the thing is if you guys had no problem delaying it to October, why not just put it first quarter of the next year and take 6 more months and actually make something worthwhile?
Like that's money.
Well,
Chris-
yeah, money, exactly. But it's like they already had a sequel in the works. You could have just pumped this out as like a part of the hype train to make it a better game. But, ugh.
Probably contract deadlines and
No, yeah,
just
I'm
good
sure.
old corporate greed is a big thing.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's why I
and-
said
and-
there's so many people that are like, I'm
All
just
right.
Bob the executive.
All right, but I'm calling it. I think we're done with final thoughts.
Oh, also,
no,
one more thing. No.
we're done with final
If you're
thoughts.
on the ground and there's something on a cliff, it can shoot down at you, but you can't shoot up at it. There you go.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, but we're done. We're done. We're gonna announce our 2 winners. All
I
right,
thought we
Chris,
did.
who do you got?
All right. I've got Slav On.
That's Slav ON and Cory.
I have Agent Noct00 or at Noct00, so 00 Noct. That's you.
All right, congratulations to both of our winners. Like I said earlier, these are going to be codes to Celeste. They are North American codes for the eShop. So congratulations. I hope that you enjoy the game. I'm going to contact you as soon as I get done with this show. And our next game that we're going to be covering is Star Fox 64. And we realize
Confirmed a good game.
it's not a 1998 release. It actually came out in the spring of 1997. But after playing Jurassic Park, we decided to pick a game that we all have a lot of love for. And we're going to have a lot of positive things to say because this was a
Except
very
about Slippy.
negative episode. Oh, yeah. Well, nobody has anything positive to say about Slippy Toad, especially where he can talk, where he has an actual voice.
Instead of going, "Baka, baka, baka."
Yeah, it was obnoxious before, but it's cranked up to a whole new level now that there's actual words being formed out of his mouth. That all said, Chris, Cory, thank you guys so much for struggling through this game. Well, actually, Chris, no thanks to you because you were the one who picked it.
Yeah,
This-
you had so many options.
I had good intentions.
You had
sort
the
of.
road to hell's paved with good intentions.
And not even kidding y'all. Like my son's birthday was 2 days ago.
That's fine. Happy birthday! Like
Happy birthday,
happy,
Gibbs.
happy birthday, Gibbs. He loves Jurassic Park, and I thought this is a game I could share with him, enjoy it for the next, coming up to doing the podcast on his weekend. I mean,
And now he hates Jurassic Park.
No, I didn't even share this with him at all. I didn't even show it to him.
Good
I
call.
started playing this game. I'm like, nope, this would ruin video games for him.
Show him the Jurassic Park Rampage edition for the Genesis.
He would love that.
I will
what
send
you-
you like a little clip of the gameplay, and you'll probably agree. It's kind of hard, but it's fun.
You get to be a raptor and eat people. He's
Yeah.
gonna love it.
So, thanks to you, Cory. No thanks to you, Chris. Listeners out there, thank you so much. And until next time, we've been Superannuated Starman.